you have to wonder, too, a little bit about Miles Sanders. I mean, he struggled last year with his health, missed 5 games, I think it was. Didn't really have a good season catching the ball out of the backfield. Now you have a new coaching staff. I'm not saying that he's in jeopardy this year, but listen, Kerryon Johnson spent 3 years with the Lions, and now he's on his second team. If Miles Sanders doesn't figure it out this year, then, he could become the next Kerryon Johnson, a young running back cast out into the market and set free.
Good day, everyone. It's Kracz here, JAKIB Media. Why am I wearing a Carson Wentz NFC East Pro Bowl jersey? Well, it's the only jersey I will not be able to give away this season, but we will be giving away 10 Devontae Smith jerseys at our 2021 NFL schedule release special broadcast, all presented by Pure Bull. The broadcast will be Wednesday night, 8 p.m. to midnight. You must be subscribed. You must be present to win, and we'll give away 10 Devontae Smith jerseys. Also, as we get closer to the season, tickets for every single game on the schedule, both home and away, plus our bus trip and experiences for fans that you will never find anywhere else. All part of the JAKIB Media Network. See you next time, everybody.
A Monday morning get together here on Birds 365 Mac Guys. Jody McDonald here to chat football with you. We've still got plenty of time to do just that, but we're going to bring in a third party to lend us a helping hand. And here's what I appreciate about our first guest. He kind of split the difference between John and myself wardrobe-wise. John went with the formal long sleeve button down.
Formal.
I went with the T-shirt. Ed Kracz kind of jumped right there in the middle. Is that a golf shirt that I'm seeing on you this morning, Mr. Kracz?
Well, you could golf in this shirt, or you could go to the prom in it too. Unlike either one of you guys.
Be a little informal for the prom there, right? Come on.
Probably so.
I think we're finding out why your night on prom night was not a very successful one. If that's something you're contemplating wearing on prom night, come on.
And I didn't know I had a tuxedo on, so I didn't know I was black tie. I put down a button down. It's like it's formal wear, Ed.
It is.
Yeah. You guys look stylish, though. I mean,
not like you, buddy.
Between the three of us. Wow, what style.
Yeah.
That's true. We'll save the style for tomorrow. We got Kristen Rogers on. So,
okay.
But let's get Ed in the mix with Philadelphia Eagles talk. I think the biggest news today is Peter King rustling up some more. I won't call it controversy, but he puts out there that the most likely landing spot for Deshaun Watson next year, odds are the Philadelphia Eagles, number 1. What the heck, Ed? Why are people, I've seen 2 mock drafts, 2022 mock drafts, which are silly. Now let's get out that early. Both had the Eagles in the top 10 taking a quarterback. We got Peter King out there saying, they're going to go get Deshaun Watson. Why the hell are we going through this year of nonsense if all this is going to happen? If we're just kicking the can down the road on a quarterback?
Well, the Eagles are always mentioned in whatever rumor of the day is. Because Howie does talk to a lot of teams and a lot of people, but the Eagles are always one of those teams that other players are interested in playing for, or whatever you want to say. They're always the ones that are being mentioned in these rumors. And you look at their quarterback situation, and obviously Jalen Hurts is the guy they're going to go with. And, he's a very unproven second-round draft pick, 4 games of starting under his belt. Not exactly very impressive. He had his moments, but he also had a lot of inconsistency. So, you're really just kind of putting 2 and 2 together here, plus the fact that the Eagles have a ton of draft capital next year, at least 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. In the past draft, they acquired another 5th-round pick when they traded a 6th and a 7th to the Washington football team to get their 5th-round pick next year. So as of now, you have 10 draft picks in the 22 draft. So, you put all that together. the fact that the Texans are clearly moving on from Watson, and you look at the most likely landing spot, and it probably is Philadelphia. It makes sense in that regard, but we'll see what kind of year Jalen Hurts has. We'll see if Deshaun Watson can't put some of these legal troubles behind him, because right now, he's pretty much untouchable until these legal issues get sorted out.
But John and I both said this on draft night or the day after, Ed, and it was kind of something that was difficult for me to swallow, because I like the player that the Eagles got at number 10. I'm a huge Devonta Smith fan and thought there was no way he was getting down to number 10 for the Eagles to be able to take. Yet I do second guess the pick, because I was also a mega Justin Fields fan and couldn't believe that he got down to 10, and they had to pass on one of the two. They decided to pass on Fields because they have Jalen Hurts. Are we 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now going to say, what the hell were the Eagles? Why didn't they take Justin Fields when he was sitting there on the board? I think there's going to be a couple of teams that fall into that category. Eagles among them?
Oh, they very well could be, no doubt. But I mean, listen, Chicago is not exactly a bastion of quarterback producing teams. So, you have to see how Justin Fields develops in Chicago. What pieces have they put around him? I mean, in New York, you look at the Jets, Jody, your Jets. I mean, they did a great job in putting pieces around their new quarterback, Zach Wilson, in my opinion. They have the offensive line pieces now. They got the receivers. I mean, to me, they've done everything they can to help Zach Wilson succeed. We haven't seen that yet in Chicago. So, Justin Fields could get off to a little bit of a rough start based on that. And if he does, we'll see how, he can mentally handle what's thrown his way. And you hope that he can hang in there and have that kind of career while the Bears try to put pieces around him to help him succeed. But you could say that about a lot of picks in this draft. Will the teams be kicking themselves because they took who they took in the first 10 picks? But listen, I'm all in on Devonta Smith myself. I'm with you. I mean, I think this guy is going to be very exciting. You hope that he can do it for an extended period based on his size. You hope that he can have a good career. But I think he's going to be exciting right out of the gate and a day one contributor.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, Ed. The fact that you have to land in the right spot, even if you're a talented player. And I always use Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb as the perfect example. Who knows what happens if Tim Couch is in Philadelphia, Keely Smith, back from that draft. If they get married with Andy Reid instead of where they went, who knows how things kind of shake out. I do want to rewind one last thing about Deshaun Watson. I know it's tiring, but we talk about Jalen Hurts versus Justin Fields. Justin Fields is not proven. He's a rookie. I think he's got a much higher ceiling as a player, but you're right. Things can go wrong. Look at Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago. Everybody was saying that's the number 2 overall pick. Deshaun Watson, though, is proven. It is hard to imagine any scenario where Jalen Hurts can play at the level of Deshaun Watson. I'm just being honest. Now, you're right. We have to stipulate the legal problems have to get cleared up, and that's a big if. But if you stipulate that and he can move forward, I mean, there's nothing Jalen Hurts can do to be a better football player than Deshaun Watson. Am I being too negative?
Well, I mean, I think you have to factor in the system too. What is the system, Nick Sirianni's system, going to do to make Jalen Hurts successful? Can he be is he as talented as Deshaun Watson? Probably not, but that doesn't mean he can't succeed if he's given the right system and the right players to work with. And Devonta Smith, I think, is a big step in giving him that. But, it is exciting to think about the prospect of Deshaun Watson coming to Philadelphia. No doubt about it. I mean, he is a transcendent talent that can be your starting quarterback. And we said this about Carson Wentz, but you can say it about Deshaun Watson too. He's a guy that can be your quarterback for the next 10 years if he stays healthy, if he stays free of legal problems. And Jalen Hurts can't even begin to match the talent that Watson has. But if he's like I said, put in the right system, given the right players, he can be successful, and you don't need to have Deshaun Watson. We're going to see what this season brings for Devonta Smith, because they did give him some pieces to play with, including that 5th-round pick, Kenny Gainwell. a great value pick. If you look at some of his tape, looks a little bit like Brian Westbrook. They have given him two pieces, and even Landon Dickerson, a guy that has snapped the ball to him. If he can stay on the field, get healthy, that's three pretty good pieces they gave Smith in this draft. Hurts in this draft to help him be successful.
One last Deshaun Watson point, and then we'll get to where does Kerryon Johnson fit for the Birds. If we're talking about Deshaun Watson being acquired by the Eagles next year, after this year, we're assuming that the legal matters in Houston have been resolved to whatever point they've been resolved. If he's reinstated and he's playing, we have to think that they've resolved those issues. To what end, no one knows, but I'm going to ask you to speculate here. If that's the case, he's reinstated, the Eagles have interest, they agree on a trade, he becomes a Philadelphia Eagle. How will he be handled by the fan base here? This is a town where Michael Vick got a second chance here. This is a town where right now Odubel Herrera is getting a second chance here. Has what Deshaun Watson's done, and again, we don't know everything of what he's done, but I'm asking you guys to try and paint a scenario in your mind. Will he be okay? This is a tough town, and that's a tough position that gets scrutinized mightily. Will Deshaun Watson be able to handle it here in Philadelphia?
Well, I think you always have your detractors. In fact, my sister was a big Eagles fan until they signed Michael Vick. She's also a big dog fan. So she hasn't come around since they signed Vick. That's a pretty long time to hold a grudge. But, yeah, you're going to have your detractors, even with Odubel, like you mentioned, Jody, and he's a great one to bring up because, he's here now. He had a 3-run homer the other night to help win a game. But I think that, the fan base will be forgiving if Deshaun Watson comes in and, wins 12 games and gets them back in the playoffs and makes a good run at a Super Bowl. Sure, I think so. But I think there'll always be, maybe that not so vocal minority that aren't going to look very favorably on bringing Deshaun Watson into Philadelphia.
All right, Jody brought it up, Ed, and make sure you read Ed's work at SI.com. Eagles Maven, he does a great job covering this team, but Kerryon Johnson, I was surprised how much excitement this generated. A waiver wire pickup in May. A waiver wire pickup. Now, Kerryon's a former second-round pick. He's had some significant knee problems, meniscus issue, missed a lot of games. This team needs a backup running back. You mentioned Kenny Gainwell. It's just about taking as many swings in the batting cage as you can. When you talk about Gainwell, you talk about Kerryon Johnson and Jordan Howard. Just keep taking those swings.
Yeah, and Boston Scott's coming back. I mean, Nick Sirianni was pretty serious about this competition stuff, right? I mean, he's got 10 wide receivers now after adding 2 and, as undrafted free agents and drafting Devontae Smith. He's got 10 receivers. He has 8 running backs. I mean, they're going to have to sort out all this out over the next few months on the field. And, when you look at Kerryon Johnson, he plays a position in the NFL where it's considered pretty disposable. I mean, Johnson looked like he was off to a terrific career. As a rookie, he ran for over 600 yards. He caught, over 30 passes out of the backfield, which I think, by the way, is really important for this offense to have a running back that can catch the ball.
And he can pass protect, Ed. He's a really good pass protector, and that was a problem last year.
Yeah, but I mean, just the nature of the position now. Dan Campbell comes into Detroit. They signed Jamal Williams in free agency, and that makes Kerryon Johnson expendable. But just that position, and now you have to wonder too a little bit about Miles Sanders. I mean, he struggled last year with his health, missed 5 games, I think it was. Didn't really have a good season catching the ball out of the backfield. Now you have a new coaching staff. I'm not saying that he's in jeopardy this year, but listen, Kerryon Johnson spent 3 years with the Lions, and now he's on his second team. If Miles Sanders doesn't figure it out this year, then, he could become the next Kerryon Johnson, a young running back cast out into the market and set free because, then you're just going to find other guys. I mean, look, 8 running backs on this roster. Now, obviously there's 4 that you could probably whack right off the top of your head that aren't going to make the team.
Yeah.
But, with Boston Scott in the mix and Kenny Gainwell, he's going to make the team. But, Miles Sanders needs to have – this is a lot of pressure, I think, in 2021 for Miles Sanders to come out and show that he can be your 1,000-yard running back and then he can catch like he caught as a rookie. If not, the Eagles could move on from him.
Jody, let me follow up here before you jump in, because I've been a guy that gets killed because I pointed out that Miles did not have a good season last year. He was a good runner. He wasn't a good running back. He was very poor in the pass game. Deuce Staley even told us he's got to tighten up his hands. His pass protection was even worse. I pointed this out. The fan base killed me. They thought he was, Dalvin Cook. And I said, no, he's not. Not even close. He's not a 3-down back. I think the Eagles realize that. They're trying to bring in a traditional 3rd-down back with Johnson and Gainwell. But I still think Miles is a great runner. I think he's a great runner. I think he's a good 2-down back. You're saying he's got to even prove that, or he could go the way of Kerryon Johnson with the Philadelphia Eagles?
He very well could. I mean, if he comes in, it's a new coaching staff, so they're going to be looking for what they're looking for. And if he doesn't quite fit their mold, I mean, Miles Sanders is a home run hitter. We saw it last year. He had the 3 long touchdown runs. I know he fumbled at the 5, and our old friend J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was able to scoop up and score the touchdown. I think that was in Pittsburgh. But he's a home run hitter, Miles Sanders. But I think he needs to be a little bit more consistent in the ground game. I think he still tries to maybe do a little bit too much. And Sirianni is going to want a running back that's going to get north and south as quickly as he can. We saw that in Indianapolis with the 3 running backs that he had there, Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. So he's going to be looking for a very specific type of running back, and we'll see if Sanders fits that role.
Well, both of your critiques are accurate about Sanders in the year he had last year. Not great in pass protection and not great catching the ball out of the backfield. Yeah, I'm still a huge fan, and I think he will fit with Sirianni's offense, and I think he will be their number 1 back unquestioned. And I don't think we're going to be talking about his potential release during next offseason. But if somebody's got to come down on the optimistic side, I got no problems with that being me. All right, optimistic. Frank Reich is quite optimistic. As a matter of fact, here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, later today on Dan Silio's National Football Show, Frank Reich will be joining him as a guest. So make a mental note of that. Be back later today if you want to hear from the ex-Eagle offensive coordinator, current coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I'm sure one of the things they're going to talk about, Frank talked about last week, and that's his belief that Carson Wentz's troubles here in Philadelphia did not stem from the Eagles drafting Jalen Hurts, that he doesn't believe that's why Carson struggled, that everybody takes blame at the top when a team has a lousy season like the Eagles did, the quarterback, the coach, and the general manager being the 3 top that are going to get roasted. And certainly that was the case with Carson Wentz here. But he just kind of dismissed the idea that Carson Wentz was off his game because he was, in the back of his mind, worried about Jalen Hurts from the night they took him in the 2nd round. Now, I know John was an advocate of this all year long. He told me on WIP, and since we've gotten together on Birds 365, yeah, that's the case. The big contributor to Carson's struggles was they made him nuts when they took Jalen Hurts. I wasn't as big a believer. I fell more into the Frank Reich camp of, really? You're gonna explain that as Carson Wentz's biggest problem? Frank, of course, is taking his new guys back, so he's got a reason to take that stance. I didn't, but I also have admitted I was kind of swung that John and others convinced me, yeah, it did kind of eat away at Carson's psyche last year. Ed, your thoughts on Frank Reich not giving any credence to that theory, and how much do you believe it actually bothered Carson last year and contributed to his lousy season?
Well, I think it bothered him. I mean, as to what percentage it affected him, I really couldn't say, but I think there was an accumulation of things that went wrong with Carson Wentz last year, and that manifested itself on the field where he just wasn't the same quarterback that we saw his first 4 years in Philadelphia. I think Hurts was part of it. I don't know what the percentage was, but I don't think you can't say that it wasn't part of it. We've seen Aaron Rodgers now in Green Bay. He wasn't happy when they took Jordan Love. Is it Jordan Love? Yeah, Jordan Love. So he wasn't happy when they took Jordan Love. I mean, we see that all the time. And listen, the Colts took Sam Ehlinger to be one of the backups. I don't think Carson's going to feel threatened by him. I think what Carson could be threatened by is the Colts still need a left tackle to replace Costanzo, who retired, and they never got one in the draft. So,
yeah.
He could be seeing some shadows. And I think that was another reason for his failure last year was the offensive line was so banged up. He never really felt comfortable in the pocket. He questioned himself where he was throwing the ball, and that could have stemmed from the coaching he was getting. I think it was a lot of things. I don't think you can dismiss that Jalen Hurts was part of that reason.
Yeah, and real quick, I mean, Jody frames it that way. I said he was concerned with, and he did not like the pick. I think the mechanical issues were the far bigger part of Carson Wentz's slip as a player. I think a lot of that had to do with the offensive line. But you're right. It was sort of a toxic cocktail, Ed, as far as what went wrong with Carson Wentz. But look, we see it. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. These quarterbacks don't like it. The first thing I tweeted in the 6th round, I thought, and it was a little bit of a cheap shot, I'll admit, when the Colts took Sam Ehlinger, was that Carson Wentz wants out. It was a joke, obviously. But nonetheless, it all comes together. It's all part of that cocktail. And I think you're astute to point out there are a lot of different things, the offensive line being the most notable. So I want to talk about Landon Dickerson in that same mindset, Ed. Look, Landon's not healthy. I think he'll be healthy relatively early in the season. He's a very good player. If the red flags turn out to be nothing from a health standpoint, Brandon Brooks and or Jason Kelce are kind of like Carson Wentz. They know this guy was taken to replace one of them. Do you think it affects their psyche?
Well, different positions. I know there have been rumblings that Brandon Brooks could be on the trade market, or the Eagles could be looking to part ways with him, and maybe Dickerson is a day one starter at right guard. I just don't see that. I think they'll bring Brooks back. It's a huge cap hit and a huge dead money hit if they were to move on from Brandon Brooks at this stage. But certainly he's in the wings to replace Kelce or Brooks if he can stay healthy. And I don't think you can dismiss those red flags. I'm not really sold that. I mean, it's a huge risk reward. We can all agree on that. But I'm just not sold that he's going to be able to stay healthy. And if he does, how long of a career will he have? You had the doctor on heading into the weekend who, I think made a great point about the arthritis that can set in, especially on a bigger guy, and that could impact the knee. Wasn't in love with the pick. I mean, I'm in love with the player, but I just don't know his long-term viability. And I would, if I'm Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson, listen, you've had a long career in this league. You've made a lot of money. You play a completely different position. Offensive linemen are a bit of a different breed because they all have to work as a unit. So they're used to working together and used to working with their understudies should they be needed. I don't think they'll feel threatened at all with the selection of Landon Dickerson. Just like if, you're Jason Peters, you're not too worried about Andre Dillard coming in either. Listen, you're the guy, you're the alpha dog on that line, and that person, whoever it is, has to come in and beat you out. And, I don't see Brandon Brooks shrinking or Jason Kelce shrinking from that challenge.
No, this is something we'll get into more over the course of the week because it comes up at the end of the week. But Ed, we've got you with us here today. So Eagles rookie minicamp begins on Friday with Mr. Dickerson and all the other Eagle draft picks, including Devonta Smith, the unsigned free agents, all the new Philadelphia Eagles, and maybe a guy or two like, I don't know, Jalen Hurts, since he didn't have a rookie minicamp last year because of COVID. Maybe he says, I'll show up to work out with those guys. How important is this going to be? How weird is it going to be after a year of not having it in the National Football League last year?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think Jalen Hurts should show up, but you have that pull of the NFLPA, the Players Association's telling guys that, they shouldn't show up to work out on the field, that they can do it virtually. But I think you have a new staff. You have still a relatively young team. You have 8 draft picks from last year that didn't get this experience. I think all of them should show up. You'll have this whole class of 9 picks showing up this week. I mean, I think it's a time for guys. maybe not the veterans, obviously, but clearly the young guys on this team need to come in and need to get with Nick Sirianni and learn his system, learn each other, get to know one another, because they're the future of this team. And we'll see if that happens. We haven't heard anything from the Eagles. We haven't even heard who they've actually signed officially to as undrafted free agents. We've heard reports, but we haven't gotten any official word who they signed, who they're bringing in. I suspect, like you said, it's Monday. I suspect, obviously, we'll hear something as the week goes on, who these players will be. We think we have ideas. Jamie Newman, the quarterback from Wake Forest, who went to Georgia but didn't play. And, they brought in the receiver from Florida, who Brian Johnson, the quarterback coach, worked with as the OC with the Gators, and Trayvon Grimes. I like this edge guy that they reportedly signed from Iowa State, Jaquan Bailey. He 25 and a half sacks in his career at Iowa State, had an injury. And I think that's the thing with some of these undrafted free agents that the Eagles and other teams are bringing in, is you're going to see some guys that have an injury history because of the way medical checks were done this past year. You really couldn't get your hands on these guys because of the COVID. So you couldn't test them out medically. They did have the medical testing at the combine site in Indianapolis late in the process, but I think they were expecting 150, but I think less than that showed up. So some of these guys do have some medical issues that affected their draft status. I mean, I think, Trayvon Grimes was a draftable guy. I think this Jaquan Bailey could have been a draftable guy, but, we've seen some injuries kind of force them out of the draft, and now they're looking for homes. So, you could hit some home runs here in this undrafted free agency period. And I think the rookie camp is huge, especially for Philadelphia. New head coach, new system, not having that experience with 8 rookies last year, and now you have 9 this year. I mean, it's time now to get on the same page on the field. You can do much more than you can virtually. So it's exciting. It's going to be exciting to see how this plays out this weekend.
Yeah, I think the biggest name you mentioned there, Ed, was Grimes, because he was with Brian Johnson, so you have that familiarity. He's 6'3" or 6'4", so he fits in as that type of X receiver the Eagles need. But I want to shift to the other side of the ball with you, because as this rookie camp approaches, I don't think it could be more important for any other player. Obviously, Devontae Smith is high profile. We all know his potential, but we all know his potential. He's going to be a good football player. 4th round pick, Zach McPherson. He's got to be on the field. The Eagles don't have anything else at outside corner. Now, Howie Roseman has alluded to making a move, whether that's in phase 3 of free agency, whether it's a trade down the line. But for right now, if they had to line up, and luckily they don't have to line up for a real game, they need an outside corner opposite Darius Slay. Is there a bigger issue on this team than that?
We've talked, the cornerback spot has been an issue for going back even to 2017, when Howie said, look, we traded for Ronald Darby, after a preseason game in Green Bay that summer. We've been talking about getting this cornerback position right for a very long time. And, they tried in 2017. They swung and missed with Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas. I'm really surprised they didn't grab 2 corners in this draft. To me, and I've said this, if I was the Eagles, I would have taken Christian Barmore at 37 and come back in the 3rd round and taken Paulson Adebo or Ben St. Juste, and then taking McPherson in the 4th round if he's still there. Then you have your 2 corners. I mean, you have to keep trying to get this cornerback situation solved. Darius Slay is a short-term answer. But you're right. Zach McPherson needs to be on the field this weekend. I mean, he's the only guy you have. Michael Jacquet, could they, potentially use him there? He's got the length. He played okay last year. I know he got burned a lot against Dallas, but, he had a good game previous to that. And you wonder about Avonte Maddox. Are they going to run him out there as the outside corner in a Jonathan Gannon scheme where they're going to play, cover 2 and cover 3 and give those corners some help? Could we see Avonte Maddox continue to start at that spot? I don't think it's ideal. but maybe he's like everybody else, like a Travis Fulgham and a JJ Arcega-Whiteside, where you have a new staff, you have new ideas, you have new schemes. Let's see if these guys can succeed. And Maddox could be in that group with Fulgham and Arcega-Whiteside, that you hope he can, because right now they have nobody else. Now, Steven Nelson's still out there, the Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback, a lot of experience. What's he going to cost to bring in? Would he take a one-year deal? The Eagles don't have a lot of money. That's probably going to change when Zach Ertz probably at this point gets released on June 1st. You're going to save $8.5 million on the cap. Maybe you bring in Nelson then. But I suspect they're going to make a move to bring somebody in, unless they are thinking, hey, Avonte Maddox can still be that guy in a Gannon-style defense.
June 1st is a key day because every team has the possibility of making moves and clearing cap room, because releasing a guy or trading a guy is more advantageous. More advantageous after June 1st. Let me ask you about a guy you just mentioned, Ed. Michael JAKIB, who last year flashed a little bit, made some plays, got burnt. You're right. Boom or bust kind of guy. Relatively inexperienced at this stage. What does he do during an offseason like this one? What can he do to improve his standings, make himself a better football player? There's no place you can just plug yourself in and be tested by NFL quarterbacks and wide receivers. What would he do individually for himself to try and give himself a better chance to come back, a spot to be had? You don't always have that there's a job to be won here in Philadelphia. What could a guy like Michael JAKIB do to give himself a better chance?
Yeah, that's a great point. Wide receivers, you can catch the ball. Quarterbacks, you can throw it. I mean, there are drills you can do, but I guess you work on your back pedal, right? I'm not a cornerback aficionado, but you can work on your back pedal. You can try to get quicker, your speed. You can have conversations with the returning members of that secondary about situational football. If we're in, 3rd and 4 and we've got this or that, you can talk situations. You can even do that with, Denard Wilson, the DB coach, or Jonathan Gannon. You have these guys on speed dial. You better use them. You better start talking football with these guys, and off the field and away from the classroom. I guess it's just backpedal stuff, speed, acceleration. You can grab a quarterback, from somewhere, and a couple receivers off the streets, I guess, and, try to match up with them, work on breaking toward the ball. I'm sure there are drills that they do that we're unaware of, but listen, you're right. That position is there to be had. I mean, even Kayvon Seymour is another guy who could be in the mix there, who played half, again, he flashed ups and downs, but if he can iron out some of that inconsistency, maybe he's in the mix too. But these guys need to be doing all they can, because if there's a job open, you're going for it, and you're going to do everything you can to do it.
Last one from me, Ed. We've talked a lot about Jonathan Gannon and the perceived changes we think we're going to see. We haven't talked to the guy yet. He's a ghost to us. So all we can look at is Indianapolis. All we can look at is Minnesota and those schemes and try to say, is he going to do this? Is he going to do this? He drafted a couple guys late in the draft. Jacoby Stevens from LSU, sort of a hybrid safety who the Eagles announced as a linebacker. And then Patrick Johnson, who was kind of an edge rusher, they announced as a linebacker. Am I making too much of that, or are they potentially looking at shifting some kind of philosophy to that positionless player we've often heard about, but we don't get to see it? People talk about it, and then they get gun shy and don't seem to use it.
Yeah, I think you got to give them some kind of a title, right? And that's what they decided to do with Patrick Johnson and Jacoby Stevens. And listen, I like that. That's one of the things I liked about this draft was the Eagles I think they got some good value late. They got guys who produced in college that were good leaders like Jacoby Stevens. But yeah, we don't know what Jonathan Gannon's going to do. We don't know how he's going to use them. I'm not sure I'm sure he has an idea of how he's going to use them, but until he sees them on the field, and you hope it's going to be this weekend, then he can start to formulate other ideas, because we've all heard Nick Sirianni say, we're not married to any one system. We're going to build a system around what we have on hand, which is a great way to attack this. And I would think all coaches would do that. If not, I don't know why they wouldn't. So I think we're going to see Gannon this is going to be an evolution process for guys like Johnson and Stevens that are kind of tweeners between safety, linebacker, Stevens. And if you're Johnson, linebacker, DN, could you be the blitzing guy off the edge? Had a lot of sacks at Tulane, Patrick Johnson did. So we don't know. And maybe this is part of the grand plan from the Eagles is let's ghost our coordinators so other teams don't know what we're looking for and how we're going to build this thing. So we're not going to let them talk to the media until whenever that day comes when we have to. And then we're not going to give them too much because we don't want other teams to know exactly what direction we're going.
The secretive Philadelphia Eagles. Best information is no information.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't work for us here on Birds 365. I need one more piece of information from you, Ed Kracz. If you go a specific direction that I can basically guarantee an outcome, because John and I have both agreed on this, which means if you agree with us, then it's got no chance of happening. Because when enough people agree with something, it's guaranteed to be the exact opposite. Wednesday is the release of schedule day. Everyone across the league will get to find out where their teams are playing on what days and the like. The Philadelphia Eagles among them, their first home game next year, hopefully in front of a sold-out Lincoln Financial Field, will be against who?
Oh, let's see. They haven't opened with they opened last year with Washington. I'm going to assume it's going to be against an NFC East team. And, I know the Giants, I think there's some chatter out of New York that the Giants really want to play the Eagles in week one after the Eagles, allegedly tanked their final game and cost the Giants, who never took care of business on their own, and cost them the NFC East. So I would like to see a game against the New York Giants week one, whether it's, in the shadow of New York City or right here in Philadelphia. I think that would have some juice to it based on what happened last year. So I'd like to see it be against the New York Giants.
Not going to happen, Ed. We all agree.
Yeah, now that we've all said it, it's got no chance whatsoever. John said Giants. I said Giants. The narrative of, yes, they stiffed the Giants last year by losing that last game to the Redskins. It's a narrative that writes itself. It's just too easy. So now we know that it can't happen since the three of us agree on it.
Well, listen, if it makes you feel any better, if this changes things, I was real close to saying the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Andy Reid, the rematch with Andy Reid. Bring the Chiefs in. Let's see how the Eagles, right out of the gate, match up with the Super Bowl contending Andy Reid-led.
That would be ugly. That would be ugly.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I think that's got less of a chance than the Giants now, as a matter of fact. And by the way, the Andy Reid and his Chiefs will be either late afternoon game on CBS or a potential Sunday night game if the Bucs are going to be playing the Thursday nighter because they're the Super Bowl champions. I think they're slotting Andy in the prime time. I don't think he's going to be Sunday at 1 with the Eagles here in Philadelphia. I don't think that one's happening.
Plus, also, Ed, you don't want to lose by 2 touchdowns. So you don't want to pile on Nick Sirianni too quickly.
Well, that's going to be interesting to see how many national games the Eagles get this year. I mean, normally they're good for at least 4 national spots, but you're coming off a 4-win season. How much luster does this team have? I still think given the market, given the passion of Philadelphia fans, I still think they get their share of national televised games.
If they have 4 national games, write it down now. 2 of them will be on Thursday. They're not getting the Sunday slot, and they may not get the Monday slot. Maybe 1 on Monday, but they're probably not going to get a Sunday game. If they get 4, they're going to be stuck on Thursday at least twice during the upcoming season. So that's Ed Kracz. If you want to blame anybody when the Eagles get those 2 Thursday night games, it's Ed Kratz's fault, Eagle fans. Remember where you heard it here first.
And give Ed some hate mail on Miles Sanders. I got to know.
Yeah, I can take it.
Thanks for coming on with us, buddy. We'll be reaching out again real soon. That's Ed Kracz from Sports Illustrated, Johnny Mac's cohort, here with us on Birds 365. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about the Eagles schedule, about Frank Reich being on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel later today. A whole bunch of things we've got to get to yet here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.